from your contact with bankers and cocoa people. The North-South Roundtable has already been discussed at great length. It's very hard to add anything to what Barney had to say. I think the big accomplishment was that the North-South Roundtable had a good notice for issues coming up before they really blew up in the face of humanity, and engage people, as Francis just said, from all walks of life, all different interest groups. And I think that while the North-South Roundtable now looks very elderly, and it was a wise bunch of elders that carried the struggle forward, and this good news was, as Francis pointed out, Mahbub before we knew what was the next issue, and we communicate beforehand. It was always looking beyond the horizon, and all the topics that have been mentioned here were kind of early on put to the fore. They were always looking for a silver bullet. We never found the silver bullet. The silver bullet is still missing from the development business. But the search is in search. The North Roundtable was, in a sense, a gadfly to the establishment throughout.
Speak closer to the mic.
Okay, sir. It's a small room. There's no... The glass for Mahbub and for the rest of us was always half empty. We always look for problems that need to be solved. And I think that was made as a gadfly to the establishment. There was no room for complacency ever. And I think that was an important function. But there's no need to belabor all the things we have accomplished in the North-South Roundtable. Barney made a inventory. But I would like to say that what I think needs to be looked at in the future, and it is one opinion, and we need an agenda, whatever future holds for us, whether we have a new establishment of the North-South Roundtable type or we don't. But it seems to me I wanted a few things that I think need to be addressed. One is, I think that we need to, looking at the real world the way it is, need to adjust trade. We have a much better system for adjusting to trade. This is a problem which besets everyone. And if trade is going to play a role in poverty reduction and everything else, we need to have a better adjustment system. And I believe that this ought to be an internal adjustment system, which rules of the game which everybody agrees to, and where foreign aid money goes into a fund which in fact permits on a global basis to fight very strongly incipient protectionism, which I think we ought to recognize. A second issue which I think needs attention is the whole of migration, which is now an important issue, and the remittances and how they're used in the countries of the third world. A second issue that I will just mention in passing. And finally, I think that we still have not really focused enough on the informal sector and how it can be, in fact, tied in with the formal sector in a way in which it isn't just a buffer or a sponge for those who don't have much of it in either the agriculture or the non-agricultural sectors. One thing I want to spend a little more time on is my fourth subject, which is related to what's mentioned before, sort of a follow-up to the Paris Declaration on Aid Effectiveness. I think we have a real paradox in foreign assistance. Everybody now seems to believe that we ought to have more foreign aid, including the G1, surprisingly. Volume should be going up for one reason some of the reasons that may not be the ones we share. But in Monterey and in the several G8 meetings, and supported by people like Bono and Jeff Sachs, there's a notion that we ought to have more foreign aid. Part of it has to do with 9/11, and the after 9/11. But at the same time, skepticism about foreign aid is an all-time high. So you've got the feeling we need more, yet the skepticism is very, very high. The skepticism is high because most people believe that the structural adjustment period didn't work very well. PISPs are not much of an improvement. People even in the IMF and the World Bank are becoming more skeptical about what they accomplished or not accomplished. Some people want to decompose foreign assistance, like Steve Bradley did. Burnside and Dollar focus on it will work only when there are good policies, and that's been subject to a lot of discussion and disagreement. There's a lot of consideration, which I have some sympathy for, that Dutch disease problems are serious with foreign aid. Not just the impact on the exchange rate, which people do acknowledge, especially, but also because foreign aid sometimes permits countries to keep doing what they're already doing, which is another kind of a Dutch disease, perhaps a more serious kind of Dutch disease, rather than induce change what they're doing. I wanted to then also mention the proliferation of donors, which is well known. Transactions costs are very high. Tanzania is supposed to have 1,000 missions annually. I've noticed also that the U.S., in spite of the new Development Corporation, has also shifted foreign aid more into the State Department, and Japan, which is the second largest donor, has done the same thing recently by shifting under the cabinet, which means that you're politicizing foreign aid more while you're claiming to distance yourself from politics. So we have an old-fashioned disbursement dilemma, which is well known to all of us. We've reduced the number of sort of from 60 on the average to 30 on the average. But there is a problem which people like Easterly and Banerjee and other people have emphasized, that the conditionality has not worked, has been conductive. So what's the opportunity that we have in the fact that some people want to spend more on aid? And I want to say the opportunity exists in the sense that if we change the way we go about our business, I believe we can in fact come this tendency for more with a change in the quality of what we do. And my view is that while I'm realistic enough, having worked in AID myself, that there will be business as usual, and there's going to be politics as usual, and annual program every country as usual. That's not going to change. In order to really change the essential of the way we do things in terms of responding to countries' actual requirements and what they really ask for, we need a new kind of aid window. In other words, keep annual programs, business as usual going, but to avoid this kind of annual ritual dance which has been going on for a long time, where people talk about conditionality and people say, oh, well, it's going to be pretty much right, and everybody is very cynical about the whole process. We need a new window. And what should the new window look like? It should be one in which we really leave the initiative to the recipient country. Not just ownership, in quotes, which is, of course, okay. Everybody says ownership. But in fact, ownership on the PISPs, still the IMF puts out a big booklet, how ownership should be exercised. So it's not very credible. Ownership really means that countries take the initiative. The donors for this new window sit back and wait. And they respond. And if the country needs help, it gets it from third parties, not from the donors. There should be a separation from advice and money. And if the country asks for it. But the critical thing is that countries themselves have to decide, both from the economic point of view and from the political point of view, what they want to do over the next 4 or 5 years, and then approach the international community. The international community can respond. Not necessarily sounded a dotted line, but the critical thing is that we become much more passive in the donor community and really seriously sit back. There'll be periods when there's complete fallowness in a particular country with respect to this new window. There may be 4 or 5 years when nothing happens. It can be annual routine, annual business as usual. But we have a situation where a country then decides what it can and will do politically and economically. The response can be there, and you need, of course, a ballooning of assistance to respond to such a request. So let me leave it at that. I think my 5 minutes are probably up.
Thank you very much.